The debate, by the way, is streaming on our website live and on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. That's where you can leave comments if you're watching at home. If you want to have some dialogue going during the broadcast, we certainly welcome that. This is a crucial time in Arizona's history because we are all making do with less, and that includes state government. Tonight's governor's debate will focus on K-12 education. This is an area that often gets short shrift. This is where we spend nearly half of our state's budget. This is where our kids, our future, and our workforce is being prepared. Tonight's debate was put together by a cross-section of education advocates, including groups that represent students, teachers, schools, administrators. Groups that, I have to be honest, don't always see eye to eye, but they came together for this event tonight because they felt that this is critically important to the future of the state of Arizona. And furthermore, they believe that there is a crisis in education in Arizona. And they want to hear from the candidates for governor and what their plans are to fix it. So let's meet them. First, Doug Ducey. Republican candidate Doug Ducey is a current Arizona treasurer. He's 50 years old. He grew up in Toledo, Ohio, a graduate of Arizona State University with a bachelor's degree in finance. He was the CEO of Cold Stone Creamery before selling the company in 2007. Doug and his wife Angela have 3 sons. Now let's meet Democrat Fred DuVal. Democrat Fred DuVal is 60 years old, born in New Jersey, raised in Tucson, a graduate of Occidental College with a law degree from ASU. DuVal was a senior aide to Arizona Governor Bruce Babbitt. He worked in the Clinton White House. He is vice president of Clean Energy Fuels and served on the Arizona Board of Regents. He and wife Jennifer have 2 sons. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Doug Ducey and Fred DuVal. Okay, now we got that out of the way. There will be no more hooting and hollering until the very end of the program, which you're free to. The biggest developments in the state in education in the past 25 years, frankly, have come from the governor's office. Whether it was Governor Symington with charters, Governor Hull with Prop 301, Governor Napolitano with all-day kindergarten, Governor Brewer with the 1-cent sales tax. Your role in this is critical. You have the bully pulpit. You set the tone. So with that, our opening question before we get going. And I will start this with Doug Ducey. He won the toss, so he deferred, and you guys will have an opening statement. But it's interesting because you deferred, just like in football, so you'll defend the South goal, Fred DuVal. Doug Ducey deferred, so he will have the closing statement in tonight's debate, and that leaves Fred DuVal to start it off. You have a minute, Fred. Thank you.
Terrific, John. Thank you, and good evening, all of you. Thank you for being here. I love Arizona. I grew up here. Jennifer and I are raising a family here, and we absolutely love this place. But I'm running for governor because we are very worried. Arizona is headed in the wrong direction, and we need to fix that. Most importantly, we are not properly funding our children's schools, and our children are being left behind. They are losing out. So let me begin with one clear, unambiguous commitment. I will stop the cuts to our public schools. Full stop. I will use the veto if I have to, but I will not allow another dollar, not another penny to be cut from our public education. Doug has a different view. Recently, the voters passed an initiative to insist that we invest in public education, and the Supreme Court has upheld this commitment. I believe we should enforce this commitment immediately. Doug says he will not comply with the order. This is an important distinction. He says he will appeal and delay the order. I want to fix this problem in the schoolhouse, and Doug is pursuing, fighting it in the courthouse. I believe if we invest in our children's future, we will grow the jobs that we need for our future economic growth and success in Arizona, and it will be a new day in a state that we love. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Doug Ducey, go ahead. You have a minute.
Thank you. My name is Doug Ducey, and I do want to be your next governor. I'm joined here tonight by my wife, Angela. She's a proud Camelback Spartan, class of 1983. We've been married 24 years this October. We have 3 sons, Jack, Joe, and Sam, who are home watching this on TV, but they should be doing their homework. I come from a family of educators as well. My sister-in-law is here. She is a public school special education teacher. She was at Osborne School District, then Lake Havasu, and currently at Paradise Valley. My mother-in-law is a school nurse in the Roosevelt District, and my brother-in-law was the principal on the Hopi Indian Reservation and is currently the superintendent of schools in Alaska, and this past year was the superintendent of the year. My background in education is as a former board member for Teach for America, the State Charter School Board, a trustee at Arizona State University, and a proud entrepreneurial fellow at the Eller School of Management. I'm proud to announce tonight that Lisa Graham Keegan has endorsed my campaign. Lisa Graham Keegan is a former superintendent of public instruction and an independent who will represent the independent voice I want to bring to parents, children, and teachers to focus on improvement of outcomes in K-12 education. Thanks for having me here tonight. I look forward to the discussion.
Okay, gentlemen, just want to put it out there. The candidates have not seen the questions in advance, obviously. Opening question, I just want to broad brush this for a minute. All we hear is how terrible the education system is in Arizona. We hear this every day, that we lag in funding, we lag in test scores. I want to get this just quickly off the table. As we sit here tonight, Fred DuVal, what grade would you give Arizona now?
This is the real challenge. The real challenge is that we have A's and we have D's. We are all over the map. We have accepted a system that is allowing a differentiation of the quality of our opportunities for our children's schools. And I think the most important thing we need to do is focus on how we bring all schools to being A schools, how we resource all schools to assure the kind of student achievement that we want and the kind of student success that we want. We have some of the best neighborhood schools and some of the best charters, and frankly, we have disappointments in both categories, and that is the core issue.
Doug Ducey, same question. If you were to give Arizona schools on whole a letter grade, what would you give them?
I would give our overall system a C-, which I think is just below average. If you look at the graduation rate of the United States, it's 81%. In Arizona, it's 77%. Now, if we were at 81%, we certainly wouldn't call that an A, but I think we have such room for improvement. We do have pockets of excellence, and we have places in this state where we demonstrate that we can educate a child better than anyone else in the country. But we have far too many places that aren't working, where children are falling through the cracks. For that reason, I'd give it a C- with room for improvement.
For what it's worth, U.S. Chamber of Commerce just looked at this. They graded schools across the state, education systems across the state. Here's what they gave Arizona. Academic achievement, a D. Achievement for low-income minority students, a D. Workforce readiness, D. Return on investment, a B. What does that say to you, Fred DuVal?
That we're uneven. Obviously, those Ds are ought to be the focus of the governor and of our politics this year. We have cut spending and in our investment in education so severely. The cuts have had huge, devastating impacts on K-12 education. Let me give you a description of some of the things that are going on. There are over 500 classrooms today in Arizona that have no permanent teacher. 10% of the classrooms in my hometown high school, Tucson High School, have been closed by OSHA for safety violations. The students in Scottsdale, John, are picked up at 1 o'clock each week on Wednesdays because they can't afford to go the full day. All of us know teachers who are going into their own wallet. They haven't had pay raises for years. They're going into their own wallet for school supplies. Superintendents are closing music and art to try and keep open a pre-K program, but making draconian choices that are denying our children the kind of opportunity. And so this has resulted in this kind of uneven platform for our children.
Doug Ducey, D. B on return on investment. This is from the Chamber of Commerce. This is a business group looking at this.
Yes, B on return on investment, A on school choice. So let's talk about what some of the school choice has resulted in. We have 3 of the top 10 schools in the state of Arizona, in the country. No other state has this many. No other state has this bragging right. And these are public schools. So what are we doing in these schools that are excelling, that are as good or better than any other place in the country? And that's what a Ducey administration will be about. There's 3 things that I am for. The first is to get money into the classroom to support our teachers. The second is to fund what works. And the third is to focus on literacy. Early childhood literacy will make the biggest possible difference in our K-12 education system. This is what's happening in the schools that work not only in this state, but across the country.
Let's drill down on that for a minute, because I want to get into funding here for a moment. We rank 47th in the country out of 50 states in per pupil funding. That's from the U.S. Census Bureau. We've cut per pupil funding 20% since 2008. With that in mind, do you believe, Doug Ducey, that there's a direct link between how much we spend per pupil and outcomes? In other words, if we spend more, do we get a better student?
So, John, I want to be very clear on this. I think that spending is important. I think budgets are important. But what I think is more important are outcomes and results. If spending were the measure of success in K-12 education, Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois, Newark, New Jersey, Washington, D.C. would be the finest K-12 school systems in the country.
I have heard you say that,
except
but I have
they're
to say,
not. They are among the worst.
15 states with the highest student spending. 15 with the highest student spending. 10 were among the top 15 in academic performance.
And I said that dollars
10
matter.
of the 15 were
10
among
of the 15
the
highest per pupil states had the best test scores.
I said dollars matter. I said budgets matter. But I said what matters is the focus on outcomes and results. And that's really, in our current budget situation, if we want to be responsible, that needs to be the focus, our outcomes and results.
You believe funding does matter?
I think it absolutely
that you're telling
matters.
me if we spend more, let's say we go from 47th to 40, would we get that in test scores?
We need to have accountability. We need to hold schools, principals, and students accountable for better outcomes. We need to use investment to achieve better outcomes. But one thing I am certain of is that more cuts to K-12 will reduce our ability to perform in K-12 and cost our students the kind of opportunity we want for them, and we have cut too deeply. No more cuts, not another penny.
Okay, let's go here to the judge recently ordering Arizona to immediately restore $317 million in public school funding. This money the legislature slashed during the term. Now the question is, you say continue to challenge this, continue with the appeals. Why?
Well, let me say what I'd like, and I want to remind people of the financial situation of the state of Arizona. In December of 2009, the state was being described as bankrupt, insolvent. There wasn't $1 available in the checking account. That's what we pay teachers, fill potholes, provide any essential state service out of. Same with the rainy day fund. There was not a dollar in it. We were on a servicing contract from the Bank of America. So where are we today? We've got over $1 billion in that checking account, $454 million in a reserve account earning interest. I want to appropriately fund our schools, but I want to do it responsibly. And the reason I've spoken on this appeal is because the baseline on these dollars is important. The difference is between a manageable budget deficit and what the Arizona Republic calls an unmanageable budget deficit. I want to see us have a manageable budget deficit. There's a settlement offer on the table.
That's
I wouldn't
right.
accept
Now, why wouldn't you accept it? Because as a businessman, they're saying, look, we'll forgive the $1.6, $1.3 billion in back payments that are due. You're a business guy. You ran a company. In the private sector, you would take that deal in a New York minute.
And in the private sector, I would be able to spend that money where it is most effective. And I'm open-minded to settlement. I would much rather pay teachers than pay lawyers. But I want to make sure these dollars are going to go to the teachers in the classrooms to support them with resources and proper technology.
Let me ask Fred about this.
Of course, that's where the money is going to go.
$317 million right this year. And everybody is telling me this would make a difference.
It will make a huge difference, John. And Doug knows this too. We have cut education in Arizona deeper than any state in the United States. We started at a low baseline, and we've subtracted, as you said, another $1,000 per student over the last 5 years. We have put these schools into the largest class sizes in the United States. That's where we find ourselves. And so I think that this settlement offer is an extremely responsible position to say, look, we're willing to work with this state. We don't want to cripple the state, but we want this investment to occur. No more delays, no more appeals. I believe that it is a responsible offer. We should accept it and get on with the business of investing in our schools.
Fred says that, of course, this money will go to the classroom. Yet for every year for the past decade, there has been a decreasing percentage of dollars that districts have put into the classroom. This is going the wrong way. If we want these dollars to go where they'll be most effective for our children and to support our teachers, for the past 10 years, the amount of resources going to the classroom has been at a decreasing percentage.
But isn't part of that because as a state we are no longer funding improvements in schools, so that money ends up being part of the override money. It comes out of operation.
John,
and
this is over
budgets.
The past 10 years. Okay, this is through good times and growing times and also the downturn. We need to adjust these funding formulas so that we're spending dollars inside the classroom. That's where these dollars should begin. You know, there's going to be, in 2015, budget year 2015, there is going to be over $10 billion spent in this state in K-12 education, over $9,300 per pupil. I want those dollars directed, every available dollar, to teachers teaching and students learning. That is where you'll make the difference in improvements in K-12 education.
It is so easy to say this, but the reality is as follows. Number one is that most of these are mandates passed by the Republican state legislature. Two is that a study recently came out that Arizona's administrative costs are the most efficient in the United States. That is the fact. We will circulate that study. Arizona, these
You're talking about administration
costs. I mean, I met with the superintendent. Incredible story of Antelope Valley Union the other day.
We've got to move on.
He said, I'm the superintendent and I teach the music class. My principal drives the school bus. These administrators are being asked to do more with less, and the problem, getting money to the classroom requires more money.
Let me quickly get to a Facebook. You won't see it here, but I'll explain it to you. You'll see it at home. Lucretia Agastarola says, and this is where the rubber meets the road, gentlemen. She says, be real. Are you going to raise taxes? I don't see how you can improve education, the education system, without requiring more money for schools. She's onto it. The public's onto it. The money doesn't exist in the state budget. I've looked at it. I don't see where you're going to get it with efficiencies. I don't see it. I don't see it, Fred. Without raising taxes, I don't see it.
I have two red lines. Two principles that will drive my governorship. One, no new taxes, and two, no more cuts from our public schools. Everything else can be on the table. Those are my two red lines. It means we're going to have a tough conversation about choices. It's going to be about leadership. It's going to be about engagement with the public as to what we value most. What I value most is assuring that every Arizona student has the full potential for their maximum success, and that requires us to make this idea that we've got to get no more cuts and more money into schools and the classroom.
But no more cuts leaves us where we are right now. 20% less funding than we had 6 years ago. So no more cuts doesn't really get us there.
That's step one. That is step one. Then we do have this immediate opportunity to settle this lawsuit at $317 million as moving the baseline. That's what the rainy day is fund. That is part of goal year number one. Then we're going to have a number of sequential steps in year 2 and 3 around state government reform, procurement, the way we purchase. Really important that we talk about healthcare, how it is that we create more models of wellness in order to reduce healthcare spending. We're going to have a multi-year strategy, but you must identify your principal goal. My principal goal as governor is no new taxes and no more cuts.
I'm going to give you the final word on this one. It's got to be quick because we've got to move on.
Well, thanks, John. I'm not going to raise taxes, and I'm going to come at the budget like a businessman, line by line and dollar by dollar, and there are places where you can have efficiencies. I want an effective, efficient spending of your tax dollars, and I'll be a governor that's accountable, and there is opportunity for improvement. We have 27% of the state's workforce outside of education that is eligible for retirement in the next 4 years. You don't have to let one person go, but through attrition, through disciplined hiring, you can reduce the cost and put more money into the classrooms. You can also look at the 80-plus agencies that all report directly to the governor. No private sector organization would ever structure it this way.
Doug, let me interrupt real quickly because I hear things from both of you that I'm frankly mystified. These documents are out there. It's not as if this is a secret society. The budget is out there. The line items are out there. Don't the voters... Don't they deserve to know what you're going to do, not after you're elected, but know before?
John, I'm telling you what I'm going to do, what I'm going to review. I've told you that I'm not going to raise taxes, but I've also said I've also said that I'm going to be responsible. That's why I want to negotiate the baseline in the amount of additional dollars that I want to put into K-12 education. My opponent just says, add more money, put more dollars. Fred, I think the total number we're up to right now is $4 billion in additional spending without raising taxes. I'm talking about how to do this responsibly, where to direct dollars to make a difference inside the classroom.
Let's talk about
And I also talked about where we could have savings, John. And when I say 80-plus agencies and 27% of the state's workforce, these are real savings over the course of 4 years. No one has to be let go.
Let's talk about...
Doug is the existing state treasurer, and so I suspect he's gone line by line through the budget. I hope by now and has more specific...
and we can't afford $4 billion.
I hope you've got more specific ideas than organizing state agencies. That's not going to meet this kind of requirement.
There's a lot of duplication and there's a lot of...
Gentlemen, we got to get into standards here. All right. Should there be, Fred DuVal, I'll start with you, should there be a standard for Arizona students that we can measure their progress, that we know where they stand, not only with the rest of the country, but with the rest of the world? And now we're getting into Common Core.
Yes.
Do you support it,
yes.
Common Core?
Yes. Let's talk about standards. Standards are very important. The most important thing that we can do in public education is create expectations of success of students, teachers, principals, everyone involved in the process. Standards have come about because there's a recognition that our children, our graduates, our high school and college graduates will all be competing in a global economy against talent, not just across the city or state, but across the world. This has been turned into sort of an ideological debate driven by the Tea Party, who has turned this into a Washington, D.C. set of curricula. It's nothing of the sort. This is achievement level expectations. Ought to be able to read by 3rd grade, do algebra by 7th. And local school districts and states have all the power to decide what teaching methods, what teachers, what curriculum, how we meet those standards, and then we can learn from one another what's working, what's not. How can we take best practices to scale? And so the idea of our using these benchmarks is a very useful tool, which is why the business community is so enthusiastic, because they know what kind of workforce they need, and they know these standards will help them.
Doug Ducey, same question. Common Core now, we've got it here in Arizona. We call it Arizona's College and Career Ready Standards. We gave it a different name, but we are doing it. We don't have a test for it yet, but we're doing it. Do you support it?
I am higher standards and higher expectations for our children. I've spoken out against Common Core. I oppose it because it ties us to Washington, D.C. for funding, and it purchases obedience from the states for certain waivers that are needed for K-12 education. I just think that 50 years of increasing Washington, D.C. involvement in American K-12 education has resulted in
If we don't have Common Core, what standard should we have? Are you saying there is no standard?
No, I would
leave it up to everybody to just kind of figure it out district by district?
No, I would like to have a statewide standard, an Arizona statewide standard, and I'd like to do it in the light of day. I'd like to bring business leaders, education champions, teachers, and superintendents together to talk about what our expectation is here in Arizona. All we have right now, John, around what this unhappy distraction is, are math and English standards. I think there are other standards that we should have inside our state, and I've talked about those during the campaign. What about civics? What about our kids and what
some of that is part of the required reading in Common Core. They want the kids to read the Declaration of Independence, Lincoln's second inaugural.
There's not a standard around that, and I think we can do better as a state by bringing our leaders and parents together. I've been out across the state. We kicked off our campaign in a competitive primary in February, and I've been listening to moms and to teachers about the frustration with the ideas that come from the ivory tower. So I want higher standards, but I'm opposed to this.
This one came from, I believe, 40-some governors.
That's right,
and business leaders and education leaders. Right. So I understand, and I'm going to ask you about it, but where's the Washington overreach here? This was developed by governors, Republicans and Democrats. It was a cross-section.
And I believe that it was developed with good intentions. But there are governors that are now asking to get out of this. You see Oklahoma, you see Indiana,
and you think
see
they
Louisiana.
should be allowed to?
Well, there's a reason. I mean, they're out talking to moms and dads and teachers who are saying that this isn't working, that the math part of it is incredibly frustrating for their kids. So I think we can have these higher standards. I think we can do better at the state level. We've done this in other places, and I think we can do it here.
John, let me respond. This is what I hear from businesses looking to relocate, and they're looking across the country. Where do I want to grow my business? They look at, how's your tax rate? Arizona, we've lowered taxes a lot, pretty good. How's your regulatory environment? Work needs to be done, but pretty good. How will my workforce be skilled enough to give me the talent that I need to achieve my business growth? Will my children have good schools to go to? Will my employees' children have good schools to go to? Those are now the issues that are driving business relocation decisions, are talent-driven issues. So they look at our funding. They say, gee, we're 47th in funding. Are you committed to the talent that we need? Then they look at standards. You're not serious about a national standard. How do we know whether or not your students are progressing at the same rate as Utah or Oklahoma or any other state? That's why the standards matter, is so that we can go to the rest of the country and say, we have a great lifestyle, we have a fantastic state, we have a great platform, and we also have the fastest improving K-12 system in the United States that will meet your workforce needs and your children's needs for quality education.
But beyond that, and this gets to what Doug was talking about, should Washington be able to punish a state that doesn't adopt Common Core? And I'm talking about time, funding, or the threat of funding to adopt these standards.
No.
Is that fair?
What Washington definitely can overreach.
But that's what's happening.
But definitely, I was there when it started, and John, you described it right. This was started by a group called Achieve, which was a group of state superintendents and governors and business people, Gates Foundation and others, who realized that we needed to have benchmarks against international standards. Washington, D.C. oftentimes oversteps its bounds. It's frequently not healthy, but the goal of having a yardstick, a ruler, to compare our progress is a critical need of accountability for those of us who believe in accountability, for us to justify increased investment.
Quickly, Doug, because I have to move on. I've got a Facebook question that is critical concerning teachers.
Yeah, and that may be the goal, but the reality is that Washington, D.C. is punishing states. And the idea of state control around education, there's a reason that thoughtful people like George Will and Peggy Nooning, as well as the National Teachers Union and popular culture folks like Louis C.K. are opposed to Common Core. This is not working, Fred. And moms and dads are saying
quickly. Let me just
Bill Bennett had a terrific Wall Street Journal article. The former Reagan Secretary of Education, I'd recommend you read.
Let me, you know, teachers are confused about this as well. So I want to put up this. You'll see it at home on Facebook. This is Patience Housing. She says, if Arizona takes on Common Core learning, how will you train teachers to teach the Common Core way? And how will this training be graded? Common Core, and this is what I've been hearing from teachers, this new Common Core has a whole new way of teaching, and teachers can't teach what they don't understand. Fred DuVal, teachers are frustrated.
The teachers are frustrated. We keep changing the rules. We went through AIMS. Now we're moving towards Common Core, and now we're creating uncertainty. Some are creating uncertainty about Common Core. We need to settle in on these standards and then commit the resources to the teacher training. These teachers are gifted, magical people who are inspiring at what they do. They are passionate about what they do and willing to work in very difficult conditions, no salary increases, low wages, etc., because they love what they do. They'll get it right. They need some assistance in getting the training. We need to make that commitment and settle in on standards for the longer term.
We should have a test. Thank you, Fred. We should have a test maybe by May.
Our teachers,
would reflect Common Core.
I just want to say, our teachers already get it right in so many different parts of this state. Our teachers sign on to teach, and I've talked to them all across the state in all 15 counties because they want to be around kids and they share a passion for teaching. What we do from government oftentimes is complicate their job with paperwork and new ideas. I think in many ways this is an unhappy distraction. How can a teacher that's already in a classroom not know how to teach these standards? There's something there, John, and it's especially frustrating what I hear from moms and dads who I'm listening to across the state in math. I want to see our kids do better in math, but we don't need to do it that way.
Let me ask you, since we're on the subject of teachers, starting teacher pay in Arizona on average, $31,000 a year. That's $8,000 above the federal poverty line. Is that acceptable?
Well, no, this is why I'm talking about putting more money into the classroom. This is why I'm talking about a system that works. If you take just the round math, let's take there's 30 kids, the average classroom size, and we'll talk about this, but let's just say this is higher than average. 30 kids in a classroom, $9,000 per student, that's $270,000 per pupil. Yet we've got classrooms where they're saying we can't afford a teacher. We can't afford a teacher's aide. Somewhere there must be some overhead. Somewhere something must be broken. What I would like to see is our teachers being respected, retained, rewarded. I honor our teachers. Our teachers are the ones that make the difference inside our classrooms, and they should be the first, alongside our children, to be thought of as we do this.
I hear this, but we're still...
Mr. Ducey, what about respecting our son?
Hold on. Sir, please, we're going to need to get through this. We're going to need to get through this, so we need everybody in the audience to keep it down. Hold on, guys. All right. Please, we can't hear each other talk if everybody's...
Listen, I'm happy to talk. Yes.
Guys, we're not going to tolerate this stuff, all right? This is not fair. This is not fair to the process.
I'm happy to talk with you after the debate. I'm happy to talk with you after the debate.
Okay. I don't know how to... Okay, guys, can you please respect the process happening up here? There's a wider audience.
I'm happy to visit with you after the debate.
Hang on.
Should we fire Russell Pierce?
Guys, that is not the issue tonight, okay? That is not the issue. We're going to try to stay on point. Fred DuVal.
And can I say something since those were...
Well, address with this. We've got a wider audience that's watching this, and we need to stay on point.
Well, I just want to say to anyone that wants to talk to me after the debate, I'm happy to talk with you, and I have said publicly that if Russell Pierce reported to me, I would fire him. He doesn't report to me.
Okay. Well,
he reports at the county level, and I don't think someone who's running to be governor...
Guys, please. Please, we've got a wider audience that wants to hear from these folks.
I have called on the treasurer to fire him immediately.
Okay, let's get to all-day kindergarten. Let's get to full-day kindergarten. Do you support it, and
yes.
Should the state pay for it? And if so, where is that money going to come from?
Yes. Early childhood education. We now understand that young people's brains are connecting at age 1, 2, 3, and 4 in incredible ways. The world now knows this, and those nations and states that are investing in early childhood education are going to get a phenomenal rate of investment on those young minds. We now know that those students that are getting early childhood education will pass the third grade reading test in higher numbers, that they will achieve more in life. So early childhood education is a very important strategic investment. But the cuts that have been made to our schools have resulted in principals and superintendents having to eliminate kindergarten, eliminate early childhood programs in order to meet other needs that they have. So, you know, I again come back to, if we were to take this offer, if we were to begin to enforce the Supreme Court decision and the voters' mandate that we pay back these schools for these illegal cuts that occurred, one of the ways in which our schools can put these money into good use is to put it back into kindergarten, and I hope that they will.
Kindergarten, all-day kindergarten. This has been a huge deal since Governor Napolitano put it into place, but then it wasn't funded. So, do you support it, and should the state pay for it?
Well, I think that all-day kindergarten is a good idea. We have it in many places. I will leave it to a local control issue, but I want to talk about, let's think about kindergarten, because I think all parents want to have better opportunities for our children. Part of kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade are our children learning to read. After that, it's our children reading to learn for the rest of their time in school and the rest of their time in their career. What I want to look at is literacy in third grade. This is what's important, and work backwards. And there's ways we can take the $9,000 per pupil that's already being spent over $10 billion and have flexibility so that we can have improvement in our literacy, so when a child gets to 3rd grade, they know how to read, and this will make all the difference. I want you to know that 88% of our dropouts are children that were passed from 3rd grade into 4th grade when they were not literate, and 70% of our prison population cannot read at the 4th grade level. There is no better use of our education dollar than to invest in literacy in terms of return. Focus on that 3rd grade year
in terms of,
and would you agree that the best literacy strategy is pre-K? And if so, we need to enforce this Supreme Court decision so we can get these dollars to the schools.
You're talking about K, not pre-K.
You're talking about K. It's the fastest way to assure that we meet these literacy goals. We've got it backwards.
It will not assure. It will not assure. It is part of the total spending.
Yes.
1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, and kindergarten where we haven't. And I would like to see it expanded. For those of you keeping score at home, Fred just spent another $200 million. So. Fred, I'm speaking as the state treasurer and somebody who saw the state dig out of a tremendous financial hole. I believe we can properly fund our K-12 education system without an additional $4 billion in spending, which will put us into bankruptcy. You know, there's only one candidate on stage that has been endorsed by the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the National Federation of Independent Businesses. We need to grow our economy in addition to improving our K-12 education
let me ask
system.
You, we've got a huge issue in this room, and I'm going to go there, and I may get in trouble for it, but I'm going there because we got to talk about it. We are a border state. 10% of our kids in our schools have parents who are in the country illegally. 15% of Arizona students, K through 12, do not speak English or are not proficient in English. There is no getting around it. It is a burden for teachers. It depresses test scores. I understand the federal government requires that we educate these kids. But how do we do it? And how would Arizona's education system look if we didn't have this strain on the system? Doug Ducey.
Well, the first thing I want to say is, of course, we have to educate these kids. And we not only have Spanish-speaking kids in our system. I just talked to a middle school teacher this week from the Scottsdale district who said not only does he have Spanish-speaking kids in his district, but he also has Chinese-speaking kids and Russian-speaking kids that deal with a totally different alphabet. And what he said is, what's important, Doug, is flexibility in these formulas, because I need to put together a program that I can tailor to the child with the principal, whether it's Russian, whether it's Chinese, or whether it's Spanish. Of course, we have more Spanish kids, but if we're talking about literacy, and literacy being the key to a career and a productive life, and not dropping out and not being part of prison, of course we're going to educate. We're going to teach these kids like we always have. Kids that come here and don't know our language. And I'm also concerned, I must say, some of the kids that are children of English-speaking parents. I'm concerned about their ability to speak and write the English language. And I think we can do better across the board.
Let me get Fred DuVal on this, because obviously Governor Napolitano, a Democrat, recognized this exact problem and started billing the federal government over it when she was governor. So I'm not talking out of school here. This is an issue in the classroom on how we're performing. It is a tough deal.
It is a tough deal, and it is about resources. It is one more area where it is one more assignment that we've given our schools with insufficient investment and asked them to meet this obligation. Federal and state unfunded mandates, this is another one, and it's very important that we assure that these children have the opportunity to move forward in our schools and become productive members of our society, become good employees and good employers. And this goes back to, we've got this opportunity right now where the voters and the court have said, go back to these cuts that you've made, reimburse the schools for these illegal cuts. Delay does not move Arizona forward. It's time to do this now.
Let me hold. We got to keep moving. I want to get into student-parent choice. This is districts, charters. Arizona is a leader in the nation when it comes to school choice. We've been headlong into this experiment for a while. If choice were the cure-all for what's wrong with education, in other words, a rising tide raises all boats, that choice would solve our problems. Why are our test scores below the national average, and why are we struggling here?
Because a decreasing amount of our dollars are going away from the classroom. Choice is just one component of what makes a school or a system successful, and look at some of the things Choice has done to Arizona. And I'm not just talking about charter schools here. I'm talking about what we're seeing in the rising tide. The Glendale School District, shout out to Superintendent Eugene Dudo. He has 15,000 kids, 17 AP classes, and more children passing AP exams than any other district in the nation. And this is a district with many low-income children. This is a public school. We talk a lot about BASIS and we talk a lot about Great Hearts because they're models of excellence. American K-12 education is underperforming. It's not just Arizona. I think Arizona has the ability to lead the way in what works and to look at these funding formulas so that we fund that, we focus on literacy, and we talk about replicating excellent districts and schools inside our state and also promoting this charter movement.
So on balance, charters and choice have been good for Arizona?
I believe on balance, charters and choice have been good, and I think that the examples of excellence and the wait list, parents making a decision to say, boy, I would like my child to go to that school, is mom and dad speaking. And you know, there's also high-performing district schools, John, that have a wait. So when I talk about clearing the wait list on this and funding the wait list, let me be clear. This includes both charters and district schools. I'll offer you another example. Rose Elementary in Tucson Unified School District is bursting at the seams. Yet there are 43 empty buildings in this state where schools used to be. Parents would like to send their kids to Rose. If we direct funds to public schools when they're excelling, we're talking about capital for operating costs. We're talking about space, and that's a good thing.
Let me, choice.
Yes, choice on the whole has been a net positive for the state of Arizona. Absolutely. I think there are two realities.
What's it done to the traditional public school?
The competition has been overall good, but we have allowed a couple things to happen. We've allowed a balkanization where we have some very high-performing charters and, frankly, some low-performing charters without much accountability. We have a difference in the neighborhood schools as well. A place where Doug and I have a severe disagreement is this notion of funding waiting lists. 85% of our students, our children, go to neighborhood schools. And I stand with them. We've got to make sure that every school, whether a student has a choice, makes it or doesn't, and goes to their neighborhood school, or makes the choice to go to their neighborhood school because it's a great school, has the resources to succeed. And so let me tell you the waiting lists I want to fund. I want to fund the waiting lists of those tens of thousands of students that are in classrooms that don't have permanent teachers. That's a waiting list. I want to fund the waiting list of students that are waiting to play sports but can't because there are now exorbitant fees being assigned to their parents that they can't afford in order to do after-school sports. The waiting list for students who want modern, up-to-date textbooks. I recently was with Amber Gould from the Glendale School District, and she was saying her textbooks are 6 and 7 years out of date. Those are the waiting lists we need to fund across the entire system so that every child, no matter where they are, because I believe that talent is equally distributed in the world, but opportunity is not. And our job is to make sure that the opportunity gap it provides an opportunity for every single child.
With that in mind, do you have a quick question?
Yes, school choice and open enrollment should not be a hypothetical. It should be a reality. And I'm here to serve children and serve moms and dads. And when they want to go to a school and they are hardworking taxpayers, I want them to be able to go there. Whether it's district schools like Rose or Glendale, or whether it's excelling charter schools. BASIS has a 2,000 kid wait list, and Great Hearts has a 12,000 kid wait list. So whether it's a district or it's a charter, I'm here to serve those children and those parents, and we will have flexibility in those dollars so that we fund those wait lists.
As governor, do you trust parents as the best judge of what their child's education should look like?
Yes. Of course I do. Absolutely.
We'll leave it right there.
Yeah, well, yes, Ducey. Of course. I think you start with a parent, and of course.
Okay, if a school is failing, let's talk about local control for a minute. Does local control go so far as to say, if a school is a D or an F, that the state can't shut it down?
Part of the reason that I want flexibility around these dollars and I want to clear these wait lists is because I want no child to be trapped into a failing school. So yes, I believe in local control, but it only goes so far. If you're going to be the governor and you're going to say, I'm going to focus on our children and our parents, if something's missing, well, that's when the state would intervene. A charter school gets shut down when it's a D school for 3 years. I know what makes a difference in a school. Here we are in Camelback High. The principal here was a gentleman named Chad Geston. The first time I met Chad Geston was at Carl T. Smith Middle School, 37th Avenue, south of the I-10. 99% free and reduced lunch. Chad Geston turned that school around. Chad Geston, as principal, has made a huge difference in Camelback. Now Chad Geston is training principals in how to do what he does. This is how you make a difference in K-12 education.
Let me ask you. Go ahead.
Can I add, the new principal here, Dr. Boyce, and I spoke today, he was describing to me what a wonderful, extraordinary change is happening here. And it's proof that you are watching innovation taking place in the traditional public school as well. Innovation is happening. Good leadership is happening. But then he started to talking about his teacher flight and how difficult it is to keep teachers at our starting salaries when systems across the United States pay so much more. We're going to keep losing this talent. We lose 1/3 of our teachers every 3 years. We lose 50% of our teachers every 5 years. We can't accomplish the kind of outcomes we want for our schools unless we keep good teachers in the classroom.
In a failing school, should parents be given vouchers to put their child wherever they want to if it's a D and F school?
No, I do not believe we should give them vouchers. I think what we should do is give every school the tools and resources to succeed, and those that need, in our current statute, for schools that are not succeeding, it requires the change of leadership. We've got some of the most aggressive.
200,000 kids.
We have a very strong accountability tools in the state of Arizona.
Doug Ducey, go ahead on that one.
Absolutely. In the Ducey administration, no child will be trapped in a failing school.
Arizona's current budget deficit is $765 million. In 2016, it's projected to be $1 billion. Can we look at the graphic for spending here? You'll see it at home, and gentlemen, you have it. This is a spending graphic, all right? Where the money goes. Well, K through 12, you see how big it is. 43% of the budget is K through 12. As you look at that, on what we're spending and where, can anybody offer up a different or better plan on how to spend this money or where to put it? Fred DuVal, do you want to look at it and
Sure.
give me your sense of it?
Yes. First, let's talk about what has happened over the last 5 years. 43% in K-12 is, I believe, below the national average. We have taken, as we've described earlier, deep cuts of over 20% in the last 5 years, over $1,000 per student. Prisons is going up, access is going up, and the cuts have come in K-12, and that's why I keep coming back.
Is that because it's touchable, or
Yes.
because it's the easiest target, or why?
It has been touchable, and that is why I am drawing this red line that says no more cuts. And the Cave Creek versus Ducey decision gives us the tool to now say we're not going to any longer balance the budget in our state on the backs of our children in our schools, which is what we've been doing. We've been meeting these other needs in order to meet the K-12 spend, even though we've been subtracting the K-12
Again,
spend.
though, even no more cuts, and I go back to this earlier point, no more cuts just keeps us where we are.
That's just...
So if we want to improve teacher salaries,
That's
if
right.
we want to
That's
do these
step
things,
one.
if we want all-day kindergarten, where's the money going to come from?
No more cuts is step one, but I don't want anybody under the illusion that K-12 isn't still under severe risk for more cuts. The notion that we are going to change the funding formulas so that some schools will get a lot more and some schools will get a lot less, most schools will get a lot less, means more net cuts from investing in our children's schools.
Let me get the...
So this is still no new cuts is a very real step one, and then we must make investing in our schools.
You've looked at many pie charts in your time, I'm sure. What do you see there? Is there anything that jumps out at you?
I see a challenge and I see an opportunity. And I want to tell you there's no candidate at this table that is talking about cuts at K-12 education. But there's only one candidate that is talking about responsible, effective, efficient spending that is accountable to the hard-working taxpayers of Arizona. I want to also say that this first year, the projected budget deficit is $282 million. And I think the only way a leader can look at this, every chief executive wakes up every day and there's a problem. And there you can say, I found it. That's why I was hired. And I can tell you, I'm looking at this budget one fiscal year at a time. Now, when you look at the projections beyond there, these are the same folks that gave the projections that we'd be growing and out of this budget deficit.
So you're saying we could potentially grow out of this and move, these numbers might not be as bad.
Well, this is why I'm talking about, in addition to managing the budget one fiscal year at a time, I'm talking about kickstarting the economy.
But again,
I'm talking about being a leader and going to places like California and to Chicago and bringing businesses here. This has happened in our past. Texas has been doing this for the past 10 years. That's what I'm talking about. That's what will benefit K-12 education. And this next year, we have the assets. We have $450 million in a reserve account.
You tap into the rainy day fund.
Well, if we are not going to cut K-12 education. So I've spoken on that, but I've also talked about other state assets that we have. So I do think we need to be creative. And
I don't see it when I look at it. I don't see where it is.
These are big numbers. We've got to make really big decisions. Reorganizing state government and agencies is not going to get us this kind of commitment. Doug, I think you've got to be honest with folks.
I am being honest, Fred.
When you look at the revenue chart, and 42% of our state revenue is the income tax, and another, whatever, I can't quite read it, 6% is the corporate tax, and you seek to repeal both.
Fred, you're distorting my position.
You've said
I've said I want to make us the most. I want you to imagine an Arizona where our existing businesses are growing and where out-of-state companies see us as the perfect place in which to do business. That's an improvement of our tax code, and that's what I'll do.
You have said you want to drive the income tax as close to zero as possible.
And I said it will take a term or two, which is 8 years, Fred. So someone with vision sees beyond just this year, and I'm talking about what in Arizona can look like over the course of a term or two.
We are down to our
last. We're
down to our last few minutes here. I've got to ask you. We talk about our kids, getting our kids college ready. Shouldn't the goal be getting our students prepared to work in the world and be productive? This gets at a point about vocational training. Have we focused too much on trying to get kids in college who maybe, let's be honest, maybe are not college material, but they've got another skill, develop it, get them proficient in it, they can go out and earn a living, and they may someday become a business owner. This is not a limit on them, but why are we trying to funnel everybody to college?
Well, we shouldn't be. That's not working. What we want everyone to do is to be able to have success in life. This past week, I was able to tour EVIT, East Valley Institute of Technology, and Superintendent Sally Downey gave me a tour. Time Magazine calls EVIT the model for American excellence in career and technical training. And what Superintendent Downey said, and I'm paraphrasing, is that every student has a skill, and every passion can be turned into a paycheck. And nobody's doing it better than Sally Downey at EVIT right here in Arizona. When we were growing up, this was called SHOP. Okay, and many people found their passion in that class. We need the funding, and this is why I talk about flexibility in the dollars. Some people will go on to be lawyers and attorneys and white-collar jobs, but some people will work in the service industry. And of course, we want them to be literate and educated and to have these skills. And we know how to do this in Arizona. We need flexibility with our dollars.
Go ahead on this. Should that be the goal, getting everybody to college?
No, the goal should be for everyone to find a pathway into their passion, into their maximum career opportunities. And sometimes that's EVIT and Metro Tech, which I know Kent Tribner is very proud of. Sometimes it's community colleges, sometimes it's universities. When I was a regent, I designed a new system called aztransfer.com to go online and take courses from universities and community colleges. And these kinds of new portals of availability of education across technical training, community colleges, and universities are precisely the new innovative ways in which we need to provide more pathways for more students.
We rank 40th in the nation for kids going to college. 40th in the nation, as I just got off on this college tangent. Only half of Arizona high school grads go on to college, okay? If we track them 6 years later, only 17% got a 4-year degree. 17%. How do we build a pipeline to attract companies and supply an educated workforce with those kind of numbers?
This absolutely is my core point. Education and talent is the driver of 21st century growth. And if we are improving our K-12 system across the board, making the commitments to K-12, making the commitments to community colleges, making sure that we are properly resourcing education, not only will we have a better workforce, but we will be communicating to the rest of the world and businesses who are looking to grow. They will find their workforce needs here. So it's not just about sales, it's about product development. We've got to create the Arizona that will assure that these workforce needs are met, and businesses will come and we will grow again.
Go ahead, quickly.
I'm not going to be part of this blame Arizona first mentality. We have some incredible professionals here, wonderful children graduating from many of our schools that are equipped to work in any organization in the country. I think the more important issue is, why do 59% of our students that go to our community colleges have to be remediated? They've spent 12 years inside our system, and they don't have the skills to go to a community college. Somewhere something is breaking down. We can do better, and
we got to stop it there because we got to get to closing statements. I had a bunch more stuff, and I never got to it.
You did, John.
I apologize. You started the program. Hold on. Please. Please. Okay, we're going to let Fred DuVal. Fred DuVal is going to have the final word. Fred, the floor is yours for a minute. Go ahead. I guess this is democracy at work, but it's ugly sometimes.
Thank
Fred
you.
Gentlemen, please. Let Fred DuVal have his moment, please. We're going to have to
Thank
cut
you
the
all
closing
for
statement.
being here. Grateful for your... Thank you for your being here, and for those of you watching at home. We have a lot of work to do to move Arizona forward, but we have so much potential in Arizona. And when I'm governor, we're going to invest in our schools, we're going to invest in our children's success. We're going to see our test scores going up. We're going to see our class sizes coming down. We're going to invest livable wages for teachers who will stay in the classroom so that they can provide their enormous skills and talent to the generation
Fred,
of the future.
I got to give
okay,
Doug.
a short...
I've got to give Doug a quick one.
We will build the new Arizona together.
You get 1 minute?
Quick, not a minute. It's going to be shorter.
Okay. My campaign is about opportunity for all. Good jobs and a chance to get ahead, and restoring our K-12 education to the greatness we should expect in this country. If you want to know more, go to DougDucey.com, @DougDucey on Twitter, or Doug Ducey on Facebook. I'm asking for your support and your vote if you want to see a businessman bring that type of approach to results and outcomes in K-12 education. Thanks for having me.
Doug Ducey, Fred DuVal. Thanks to everyone here at Camelback High School. And if you missed any portion of tonight's debate, you can get it on fox10phoenix.com. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for spending some time.